There's Brad. Hi, Brad. Here we are.
Hi there.
Hello. Okay. So welcome to the last meeting of February, February 28th. Those of you born tomorrow, or February 29th, not born tomorrow, but on February 29th, happy fourth birthday or whatever number of birthdays you've had, not very many, I suspect. We always start the meeting by talking about how we will work together, and then we'll take some time to go around. We have a lot of new members here tonight, or stakeholders here tonight, and so we'll be going around the table. But before we begin our work, I wanted to remind everybody that these are the values that we put forward for our meetings. And Francisco, do you want to start with the trend? Do we need to do that?
With the interpretation,
Yeah.
as it is with all of our meetings, we do have Spanish translation available. And there's a globe at the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side. And you will need to select the language of your choice, which includes, if you would like English, to please select English or Spanish.
Bienvenidos a todos. Como siempre, ofrecemos interpretación al español para aquellos que no han utilizado este servicio anteriormente. Si pueden pulsar el globito en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla y seleccionar el idioma de su preferencia. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Francisco. Okay, going back to our values, they're up on the screen, but I'll just read them to you because they're really important that we remind ourselves each time as we work together. One, that respect and trust matter, that the conversations here need to reflect openness and transparency. And we really encourage others to share and inspire one another and also be open to new ideas. We have to understand that we're a community, that we face many realities every day. And that it's only that we continue to build partnership through collaboration and cooperation. And also to remind everybody that as you are commenting, make sure that you hear your voice, but also that you allow time for other voices to be heard throughout the whole meeting. So with that, I think we'll go around the table first and introduce everybody because we have a lot of new members or stakeholders. We're using stakeholder. So Anthony, why don't you start?
Good evening, everybody. Anthony Aragon with the National Western Center. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Jenna Garcia. I do marketing and communications for the authority. Good to see everyone.
Hi, I'm Kyle Kopp with Project Angel Heart. I'm the Operations and Sustainability Manager. Here representing our nonprofit.
Great.
My name is Alma Urbano. I'm with CSU's for community outreach coordinator.
Catherine Archuleta, your facilitator.
Yeah.
The
Oh, my name, sorry. Sandra Ruiz, global resident from EGS and Partners and the National Water Center Board.
Yeah. That's fine.
Slavica Park with CRL Associates and here on behalf of Saksha.
Anna Varela with TR Collectiva and a neighbor of this community.
Brad Buchanan, I'm CEO at the National Western Center Authority. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Chief Real Estate Officer at the National Western Center Authority.
What's your name?
Steve Nally. Did I just really do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Mike?
Hi, good evening. Mike Bouchard, Executive Director for the Mayor's Office of the National Western Center.
Devin.
Hey, everyone. Thanks. Great to be here with y'all. My name is Devin Saunders, and I'm with the Denver North Business Association.
Welcome. Miriam. Did we lose you?
Oh, yeah.
AE. AE, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, I was off on another document. I didn't know you were off the table yet. Yeah, this is AE over in Globeville. The picture seems to be pretty good tonight. I can actually see people. So I don't know if you guys
Lot
adjusted
of
the
light.
technology, but that's good.
Great. Maria?
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es María de Luna y soy parte de la coalición GS.
Good afternoon. I'm Maria de Luna. I'm part of the GS Coalition.
And I'm a member of the GS Coalition.
Gracias.
Miriam?
Yeah, so sorry. I pressed the wrong button and accidentally I left the meeting. So sorry. Miriam Garcia, Chief Operating Officer at CREA Results. Thank you so much for having me.
And Anthony is not me, Catherine, it's someone else.
Oh, Anthony.
Hi, this is Anthony Garcia, Senior from the Birdseed Collective, and I'm also born and raised in Gloveville.
Great. Well, we have a great, terrific group here tonight with all the stakeholders at the table. Just as a quick, just to get us a little bit relaxed and get to know each other, we spend just a minute on an icebreaker. And so moving that across the board is just, what do you consider to be the sign of spring that helps you know that spring is around? And just make it one or two words. How do you know spring is here or coming? We'll start with Steve.
Great. Tulips start coming up in my garden. And it terrifies me because it's still really cold and it's a little early. Yeah, and the buds start showing up on the trees, also terrifying. It's so cold.
Brad?
The birds change. Early in the morning, the bird sounds are changing in the early morning and in the evening. It's a different set of birds that are showing up.
When I was thinking about this question, I wondered if capping happens in the spring.
It does. It does. But they do it in the winter. They call it spring calving and it's really winter. Why they call it spring calving.
For me, it's the way the light comes into my home. And my home, like a lot of the Elyria homes, faces east. So the sun just really shines earlier in the day and it's a totally different feeling. So that's how I know winter is leaving and spring is coming.
It's just weather in general and how unpredictable it is. You just don't know what to expect. So to me, that's okay. Things are changing. It could be the snow squall or it could be certainty. Yeah.
Diversity. How about you, Santa?
Can I say it in Spanish?
Sí, claro.
Porque no-
Claro que sí. For me, it's different things. One is my emotions begin to change with the different seasons. And also, I know that things are beginning to grow in my yard. And there's also a bird that starts to appear on a tree and looking.
My emotions change as the seasons go by. I can see the grass coming up in my yard. And also a white owl that has come back, usually hangs out looking at my house.
Oh, interesting. How about you, Emma?
I think for me, it's also my mood is different. I have more energy during the spring and I sleep a little less and still have more energy. And also the insects, there's more insects around.
How about you, Kyle?
I would say, thankfully it hasn't happened yet, but the early morning dew smell.
Yeah.
Usually makes me feel spring. But we need a little more winter, sorry everyone.
Spring is my favorite season. And I would just say the color green and rebirth. New buds and green coming through the grass. It's the best.
For me, it stays lighter longer. Yeah, so that's been happening a lot each day. It gets lighter.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Ville. I am from the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. For me, the sign for spring is the pictures that my family sends me from my hometown, Guadalajara in Mexico. We have these beautiful flamboyants and the primaveras that they bloom in a purple and yellow color. I live in Evergreen, so for me, the spring really comes late June. So those pictures that they send me is like, it's coming at least over there.
Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria, also from the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. I think you've said it all, but I will add that my cat bothers me to go outside more as it starts getting warmer. She lives under the bed during the winter and she starts scratching the door when she sees that it's gonna be warm outside.
You want to go to the screen? How about you, Miriam?
Sure. I think for me, I live in Colorado Springs, but definitely, as we know and we are so get used to, even when we know that it's a spring, snow always surprises, but at the same time, it's not a surprise. So, and on top of that, I can see, like you were mentioning, like the sun, a little bit of the grass, my pet, changing of emotions as well. So, yes.
Anthony Garcia.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of hard to tell if it's spring in this with this crazy Colorado weather that we're having, but being able to get off work and it's still being light outside is definitely a plus for me.
Absolutely. How about you, AE?
So I will go with the the electricity and the texture of the air. With some of that is aromatic, but I want to say that the emissions, depending on where you are in Denver, smell different when spring comes. I think there's different things going on. It's kind of interesting in this arena. I think most people that have lived here for a while can say, oh, that's why we smell that now, and we don't necessarily smell it in the winter. And that's not a negative statement. That's just simply something that's part of our environment. But underneath it, the electricity and the sort of the texture of the air.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see, Devin.
Yeah, it's already been said, but for me, it's for sure tulips. They're my grandma's favorite flower, and so every time I see them, I just like automatically think of her and associate it with spring.
Maria.
Creo que para mí es mirar que amanece
I
más
think for
temprano.
me is that it's the light comes out earlier and the sun goes down later.
And it also goes down later.
And Mike.
We had solar installed last summer, and I've been watching all through the winter. The output of the solar panels obviously was down, and now it's starting to ramp back up. So it's exciting to see the sun creating energy.
Great. For me, it's the smell of the air. To me, there's like when winter leaves and spring comes, there's a different smell in the air. I think it's similar to what you said, AE. It just smells different. There's just like this moment that it begins to smell different. All right, well, we know a little bit more about each other, and part of the reason that we do these little just snippets is so that we get to know each other in an easy way as we do the work that's so important to us around the National Western. So we'd like to take a moment here to do community updates and happenings in the community, and it's an opportunity for those stakeholders who are new, is that if you are a nonprofit and want to share some information with the rest of the stakeholders, that would be great. Please do. This is an opportunity to get information out. So anybody have some from the community, some happenings they'd like to share? Okay, Councilor CAC.
We at Project Angel Heart serve meals to people with all forms of life-threatening illness. And currently, we are underserving in the Gloveville, Elyria, Swansea, as far as our numbers per geographic location. And so we're expediting clients who qualify for meals. So if you do know anyone who is ailing from any sort of life-threatening illness or debilitating illness, please refer them to us. We'd love to get them services.
Thank you, Kyle. And are those applications?
These are applications, anyone who's online who can download an application off of our website, which is projectangelheart.org. And give it to any individual to have their doctor refer them, or they can self-refer themselves.
And just to add, I think you had told me once that it can be even like diabetes. It doesn't have, I think, right? It really depends, it's case by case, but
Sure.
not to limit the thinking to, you know, some terminal extreme, right? Where like,
Absolutely.
okay, I love that about you.
Heart disease, kidney failure, one of our longest serving clients has very debilitating MS, so it just is hard for her to stand to make food for herself. So there's lots of things that qualify. I'm not part of our client services team, but if you have questions, you can call our office and speak with them.
Terrific. Other updates from the community, Jenna, will you share to the? Yes.
Sure, if I can, this Friday at the museum, we're gonna celebrate Girls and Science. It's a free night at the museum from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we're gonna have a series of activities aiming to stimulate the girls that come with their families to the museum to have firsthand interactions with leaders in the community in the field of STEM, for them to pursue a career in engineering, mathematics, and science, and well, all the acronym, what it means. It's gonna be a great day, free access to the museum and good activities for, to give exposure to those girls and to be inspired and pursue careers in the STEM field.
Do they have to pre-register?
I think there was a link, but now it's gonna be first come, first, like, it's just like walk-ins, yes.
Walk-ins.
Mhm.
Great.
Thank you.
Or Sandra, and then.
We're also gonna be at the CSU Fair will also be at the museum on Friday. And then on March 9, we will also celebrate Girls in Science at CSU Fair on the second Saturday. So we will have activities, and CBS is bringing their weather truck. So there will be other things happening throughout the buildings, and all the buildings are free all the time, but especially on second Saturday. And then our summer programs are open for applications. And all of them should have, or all of them have scholarships, or they're free to the community. So I can share that. I forgot to bring flyers, but I can share that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to send it to Anthony, he can do that. Perfect. Sandra?
And we still doing fundraisings for Sabor Comunitario, which is the cooking and entrepreneur program that is gonna start on April 8th for Hispanic students. It's gonna be in Spanish. The chef that is gonna be leading the program is Pablo Aya, who is from MasterChef Mexico for 32 weeks. So we need to raise a lot of money to pay for the space, pay for food, to pay for a lot of things that we need to pay for. Also, we started the leadership program for women, also for Hispanic women, thoroughly Spanish también. That is taking place here. This is gonna be the third Saturday. We're still getting more interest from women. They have 3 different projects to do: a personal, a professional, and a community project, which they also gonna be asking for donations, sponsorship, because they're creating a program to help, como se dice, elderly in the
Ancianos.
community. GS, they wanna create this community project that to give them different skills and art and dance, and just to keep them busy. ¿Qué más? And also we're also Still, we're gonna start raising money for the other program, which is Alianza Eco Mujeres, which is a program that is gonna be collecting new data through surveys, the women and, ¿cómo se dice? Los adolescentes. Sorry.
Adolescents.
Yeah,
Very simple.
are gonna be doing, the surveys, and it's gonna be like a 6-month program. They're gonna be knocking on doors and, getting all the new data. Some of the data that we have already is really old, so we're trying to get new data on everything, environment, health, crime, food, everything in these 3 communities. ¿Qué más tenemos? I started a newsletter last week, which was like a pilot thing. I think it came out all right. So if you guys wanna send me all your information so I can do it, I'm gonna do it tomorrow and send it tomorrow to everyone. Just because we need a place to have all the events and things that we have in the community, because then we start doing events and meetings on the same day because we don't know who else is doing what. So that's a place that we can share that. Yeah, I think that's all. If I forgot something, but I don't know.
Thank you, Sandra.
Gracias.
Thank you. It's a lot. When do you sleep?
I don't, my cat doesn't let me sleep. I have the same problem. Now she wants to go out because she, ¿cómo se dice? Presiente la primavera.
She's your spring coming.
Yeah.
Others who, I have a couple. We are so close to being able to acquire a food forest, out of a vacant land, in Swansea. It's just really exciting. We've been acquiring community, and everyone who doesn't want an open, green, tree-ridden area where you can eventually pluck a peach off the tree. So we're very close. We expect to close on March 5th, but of course, there's still a little bit of an opportunity to donate towards that. So, any amount will help. And then on the 6th, we will have our first community meeting about it. So everyone that is living in the neighborhood or would even want to spend some time being a tree keeper, learning about how we got that far, and what comes next, we'd love to have you. Please share it with neighbors especially. This is really for neighbors to enjoy and get their hands in the dirt however they want. One portion, at least 25% of that land will be community developed, right? So whether that's a little stage or kiosks to make a small mercado, a sheltered area to hang out, whatever we want to do, whatever the neighbors want to do. I'm excited to see that happen. So that's March 6th. And before that, this Saturday, and it's very related to, I mean, at least this land here, the mayor is going to be coming to our community. Brad will be here over in the Triangle, Marcy as well. I'm not sure, Anthony, if you're coming or a few other partners, but anyway, we are now open to inviting everyone to at least partake and see it. I'm happy to provide you the stop information. Again, apologies if you've heard about it and haven't been invited, but there's really important partners that we wanted to make sure got access to listen to the mayor, to be part of the discussion, to have space on the bus. First, make sure that it's equitable. We always make sure that there's a good amount of balance between partners and neighbors. We always want there to be more neighbors there. And then once that was ready and baked, all those ingredients and in the oven, now we can open and it smells great and we're really excited for it on Saturday. It'll start at 8:30 at Gloveville, at Birdseed Collective. And the mayor will arrive at 9. It'll be short and sweet. He'll be gone by 11. So we just wanted to talk about that and share it with you all. And one of the stops is just the Triangle here on, I forget if it's Brighton and 47. So feel free to stop on by. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me, myself, or I don't want to volunteer Brad, but he might be a great resource for that too. So amazing. Okay, so that's it. I'm just very excited about it and there's a lot coming up. Thank you for sharing all your community stuff.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, we'll wait. But we'll keep moving and then keep, is there anybody on the in the Zoom rooms who have any community information they'd like to share? Okay.
I do. Hello.
Yes.
Hi, this is Anthony from the Birdseed Collective. Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple things. This Friday, we're starting our ESL classes. It was geared towards the migrants, but we're finding out that there's a lot of community members that want to be a part of that too. So that will be happening this Friday, and I believe it's going to be the first and the third Friday of the month from now on. That will provide food and childcare for that as well. And I believe that is from 6 to 8. I'll send out a flyer to the email chain later on. Monday, we still are doing our food program. So feel free to come by and get a box of food. That happens at 3 o'clock. We're also starting Tai Chi classes on Mondays. So that's kind of something a little bit different that, we're not used to seeing in our neighborhood. Obviously, we're going to be the first stop for the mayor's tour. That will be at from 8 to 9, where you would catch the first stop to ride the bus. And yeah, just kind of our normal already existing program. We have a craft circle on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, we have classes with Beats by Girls, which teaches how to make electronic music. And it's open to everybody, but it's just the name is Beats by Girls. And yeah, I think that's kind of it right now.
Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sorry, I'm late, everyone. So my name is Lori Wethus. I'm the Director of Program Impact at Focus Points. I'm also a professor at MSU. And the event I want to share is, and I can email anyone if you put your email in the chat. We have a resource fair that began with the idea of providing information for families for the summer for their kids, like youth camps. So we'll have different resources. Denver Zoo is supposed to be there. MSU mascot will be there. Also, MSU has a new initiative where they're helping immigrants that don't have documents go back to school and get a college degree. And so they will be there as well. Super excited about that. And all of you are invited.
When is this event?
It's March 21st.
Thanks, Lori. All right, any more updates? Just make sure I'm seeing everybody. Okay, I think the next item on our agenda is the National Western Center updates by Steve and Anthony. Steve, you want to take it away?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Steve Nally. I'm the Chief Real Estate Officer here at the National Western Center Authority. Just going to provide an update on the Equestrian Center Hotel Parking Garage procurement that's underway and talk a little bit about the Cup North, which I don't see on the agenda, but it's live. I think last time I said it was closer than it's ever been. Posted it on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. So a little bit about Equestrian Center. We are still in this cone of silence in this confidential state. We did receive, we did shortlist. We've received proposals. We shortlisted to 2 teams. Those 2 teams are competing, and next week is a really busy week where we will go through an evaluation and interviews with those teams. We intend to make a recommendation to our board of directors at the March meeting and intend to have a preferred proposer in March that we will go public with. We will then negotiate maybe for a few weeks to then execute a pre-development agreement, which is basically a commitment to design the process, and it lays out essentially the next 12 or so months of work that we will do with this selected proposer. So really exciting process. We have 2 really strong teams. They are competing. The reason this is confidential is because we don't want any information to get out that would potentially jeopardize the competitive nature of the procurement. Once we make the selection, we will then shift into introducing the proposer. At this meeting, and at several other community meetings and outreach efforts that we plan to put together over the next year. We do want your feedback, similar to your feedback that informed the request for proposal, the ideas that went into the document. We also want your feedback on how we work together as partners through designing this massive project. The things that are meaningful to the community members, stakeholders, what's really important, what do you want to make sure you're providing input on as we move through the design. We will be coming back to this group in March and have some better ideas on when we need certain input, because we don't necessarily need input on programming, or we want to make sure there's horseback riding for the community. That's certainly important, but there are things that need to happen earlier, such as do we feel good about the connectivity through the site? The things that inform the footprint of the buildings and where these things are going to land, those things need to happen early, much earlier than programming ideas that come later. So we'll have more thought. We will propose an approach at the next meeting, how we work together. It will also depend on who we select. The teams are different. They have different ideas and different concepts, and so we may take a different approach depending on the team that is selected. So much more to come on that. And again, we want to seek your input on how best to work together through the next 12 months of design of this very exciting project. Anything to add on that?
I think you covered it.
Good. Any questions on Equestrian Center, hotel, parking garage?
Timeline?
Timeline for,
Like date of ideal conditions when they'd be built out?
we are really shooting for opening doors for the 2028 stock show. That is really fast. It seems like that's so far away. That's actually really fast.
Yeah.
That's our goal. You know, if we don't hit the 28 stock show, we'll likely open sometime in 28 and open with other events. Stock show doesn't have to be our grand opening. It just happens to be a big event that happens here, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the goal for doors opening. Phasing, what happens first, we don't know yet. As far as if a parking garage comes online first, for example, we're not sure if that makes the most sense yet. I'm sure would be helpful, but.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? For some of our newer stakeholders, are there, does it make sense what he just described? Is a little background helpful?
Yeah, like I'm interested to hear more about that equestrian center. What's the purpose of it? What is the scale of the project?
It's really vague. So on the campus plan map, the folks in the room can see, but folks online are unable to see unless the camera turns over there. The blue shade is basically the site. It's just shy of 18 acres of land. We really struggle with scale on this map. There is a duplex or potential single unit way off to the right. You can see that is that little small gray square is to get a sense of scale. It includes an arena that's 4,500 seats, a floor that's 300 feet by 150 feet to accommodate equestrian events. All types of equestrian events, from draft horse events where they're pulling wagons, to barrel racing, to other types of equestrian events, to just regular old horseback riding lessons. There's a paddock, which includes warm-up rings, which I believe is, I'm gonna give the wrong number, but maybe plus or minus 120,000 square feet, really, really large, so that might be too big. And then barns with stalls, that's potentially 500 plus stalls for horses. A parking garage with a minimum of 582, I think, parking spots, somewhere in there. And then a hotel component. And the thing that's really exciting about this project is those things don't really go together. There aren't many examples of a hotel and an equestrian and barns, but this is a very unique place. And it's an exciting, design challenge to create a people place and an equestrian place. So those are the components. Equestrian is a major kind of key, building that has always been envisioned back to the, master plan days. The current event center over here is an equestrian center, during stock show and throughout the year. This new equestrian center will replace that, the use of that building.
How many rooms will your hotel, is it still in the?
It's a minimum of 200 rooms. So we may see more than that. We may get pushed to go less than that. We'll see, but that's what we put in the RFP, minimum of 200.
It's gonna be just for shows and events, or it's gonna have an educational component, like in the Villa building, that they have also, you know, like the therapy, the courses and things like that, or this is just gonna be for kind of commercial purpose, so to speak.
That particular location is intentional, where the equestrian center is right next to the equine center at CSU Vita. If there are injured horses at the equestrian center, they can go over to CSU Vita. It is an expanded footprint, if you will, where there can be cross booking of those facilities. So from that perspective. And then the hotel is also related to events that are happening at CSU. I mean, people that are here on campus for whatever their purpose is, and need to stay the night. If they're just in Denver and then want to stay in an interesting location, this is a hotel. Yes.
I just have a question. I know it's not till 2028, but I would hope that like a year before, there would be opportunities for like the local GES residents to apply for jobs at the hotel. Like, would you advertise that so that we can let people that are looking for jobs?
That was a key idea that came up during the initial outreach. That is in the RFP, all types of jobs. Not just construction jobs, also not just the low paying jobs in the hotel, but across the full spectrum of opportunities. It's a big component of the RFP. We are scoring the proposers based on their ability to meet those goals. So that was a big idea that made it into the RFP early on that we'll see play out.
Other comments or questions on the equestrian center? Do you want to talk about Cup North?
Yes, I will shift to Cup North. I'm gonna share my screen for this because we do have something to look at now. If there's an RFP out on the street. I'm gonna start with this map. That's weird, you can't see it. Okay, so the red dot is the Cup North parking garage site. So Cup North, Cup stands for the Central Utility Plant. This site happens to be north of the Central Utility Plant. It's a very creative name. But that is generally the piece of land where we have issued an RFP to develop a parking garage and other complementary uses. So we went through the same process with community members to generate ideas that made it into the RFP. We talked about some of that with equestrian. Similar ideas made it into the Cup North RFP, and I will walk through this here momentarily. So just shifting over to the RFP itself. That is showing up really weird. Are you zoomed way in by chance? There we go. That's better. Okay. Okay, so this is the RFP. I will start first with the schedule. So we issued the RFP on Valentine's Day. Generally, proposals are due. We have some one-on-one meetings and there's some commenting periods that happen, but then proposals are due April 5th. We will go through interviews. We intend to announce preferred proposer mid-April. And we are selecting a partner to enter into exclusive negotiations with. we will be negotiating a lease for the land. This land is city-owned. It is in the authority's lease, so then we will be subleasing to this group, this partner that we are selecting. So we'll negotiate a sublease, and we will also negotiate a project agreement that is to design, build, finance, operate, and maintain a parking garage and other complementary uses. So that's the schedule. I will jump to kind of the project goals. They're in section 2.2. By the way, this is available. You can get to it through our website. It is on BidNet, which is our software that we use to issue all of our procurement, all of our RFPs. So the project goals: advance the vision and mission of the National Western Center and contribute to its long-term success, maximize parking resources to support the campus, maximize sustained revenue and mitigate financial risk for the authority, create opportunities for partnership with the community and to create benefits, leverage adjacencies, potential sites location to further activate the campus, and to serve local neighborhoods, seamlessly integrate with these first few phases of the master plan, which is kind of this side of the campus, and embrace an ethic of regeneration. Keep going. Under key stakeholders, we list the global area and Swansea neighborhoods. We seek input on this language from this group that describes this CAC and describes the process that we went through to get input into the RFP itself. We reference Exhibit C, and that's where all 270 ideas for both the Cup North effort and the Equestrian Center effort are located. So there's context. Not all of the 270 ideas are relevant to this parking garage, but it helps provide context for the needs of the community, even needs of located in the community itself, such as sidewalks and other services that are just missing in GES. Jumping to maximizing the benefit for the community, I just wanted to highlight that where community is mentioned throughout this document. Describing the project as where feasible, maximizing community benefits for what is developed. Moving to additional requested elements, community space was a big idea through this process. And depending on the placement and orientation of the parking garage, there could be some ground floor activation, core and shell space that's built that could be built out for community use, to be determined down the road. We are requiring a 35% utilization goal to meet local, small, disadvantaged, minority, and women-owned business utilization. So that is a pretty high bar that we set for all of our procurements. Once we work through the project negotiation and create a project agreement, we will also set goals with the city's disadvantaged business organization, which will set requirements for hiring, for design and construction of the project as well. So that will be down the road after we negotiate a project agreement. We are requiring in the reference project experience to describe working closely with communities like the GES neighborhoods and other creative partnerships with community stakeholders, similar experience relevant to this project. So we want them to demonstrate how they work with communities in the past. We are requiring a community partnerships experience narrative where we are requesting concepts around free and discounted use of parking for residents of GES. Requiring the roundup, but also other forms of contributions into the community investment fund, seeking other revenue sources. Not sure what that looks like, but we're putting it on them to describe what they could potentially come up with. And then apprenticeships, internships, jobs, residents, and what that looks like. For a parking garage, it may be, construction jobs to build it. There may be some operational jobs, but those things are pretty self-operating once they're built. Keep going, a couple more pages here. This is the evaluation criteria and how we will score. We have a proposers' approach to the community. We were scoring on what they tell us what their approach will be. So there's some pretty substantial points there. And then also evaluation committee, we described, there will be community members as part of the evaluation and members making those scores. And then just jumping to show you, I'll jump back to the end of the document. We referenced this exhibit, which let me get to a different, see my top of my page. I can get to the other. Sorry. So, getting back to the exhibits, these are the 270 ideas that made it in, again, for context. So I just wanted to show everyone the RFP, point to those particular locations where we received input from the community and where they landed in the document. Any questions on up north?
Questions from the stakeholders? I can't see anybody on the screen. Can you, Jenna?
I'll start.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody in the Zoom rooms? Okay, thank you, Steve.
Great, thanks.
Anthony?
Yeah, so the next agenda item is, I wanted to briefly discuss the CAC Plus community email distribution list. Since I started here, how I have been distributing information is I have a list of everyone's emails, but I don't, when I send anything, I don't put it in the CC box, I put it in the BCC box. So that if someone's replying all, that, we're not getting, everyone's getting multiple reply alls. For confidentiality purposes, in case people, may or may not want their email shared. But it's been my practice, if anyone in the community wants to share information with the CAC Plus, I always distribute it for them. And I just wanted to just check in and feel if people feel that that approach is good for them. That's one question I have, and then I have another question or another thought around a membership list. But I do know that I'm mindful that I don't CC everyone's emails, anything related to the CAC Plus, which is why you only see it come from me and you don't see everyone else's email. But recently I've received several requests, could I share this or could you share it? And I just tell them, please send it to me. I'm happy to forward it to the list. That is the process I've been using to date. And I just wanted to ask if anyone had any thoughts or concerns with that approach. If not, I can continue doing it the way I've been doing it, which is happy to provide any information to the CAC Plus for any happenings in the community. So does anybody have any thoughts or questions? AE, raise your hand.
AE?
Yeah, I appreciate this being on the agenda. I want to, I would like to go on record to make a correction in relationship to how this somewhat came up. Last meeting, I was under the impression incorrectly that Anthony had somehow dropped me from the list for the stock show reception. I had received some very friendly emails from my peers. Hey, well, come as my +1. I searched my email and I brought up last meeting, how did that happen? And Anthony, during the meeting, offered to show me the list with a sort of tone where I immediately thought, wow, I don't think he did anything on purpose. So I followed up with him a little bit. He did offer to send me the list. I declined and asked for it to be deferred into this discussion. But I wanted to go on record on tape, because it's on tape last month on Anthony's behalf, that I lost that email and numbers of others through my very high-level spam filter. I have a visual block spam filter that copes with my email being compromised by other people's emails being hacked over the years. So I want to go on record that there was no selective sending as far as I'm concerned, and correct any impressions. I did contact folks, Anthony, and correct that directly as much as I could remember. But I just want to make sure that's clear. And I appreciate that Anthony was willing to share that list. it did raise something that I think that people's reaction to it. I learned that there's a lot of things going on out in organizations and uncertainty. So this is why uh, um, I was certainly one of the people that requested this get cleared up as policy. And over the years, I've very much seen, as I think many of us have, the CC fields be used as a little bit of a dog and pony show and creating misimpressions of who's really being involved. I appreciate, Anthony, that you do BCC for the most part. Then the National Western Center Authority office does not necessarily as a policy. We talked about that a little bit, I think, but the importance of getting a defined list of what the affiliated um, membership or whatever word we use, I think is really important, especially as things are being approved and that kind of a thing. So for the sake of the whole understanding, excuse me, of how to use email authentically and with best practices, for lack of a better term. But I do want to make, if anybody has repeated my misinformation regarding Anthony last meeting, please correct that impression out there and we'll go ahead. So can you talk in terms of the office? I appreciate that you personally are saying we do receive conglomerates of visual. A lot of people copy and paste these lists, use them, and depending on how the emails are worded, when a full list shows, it can, in the CC field, it can give the misimpression of types and volumes and scopes of involvement that are not accurate. So can you guys address that?
Hey, this is Jenna. I'm happy to weigh in on that just because I send out a community-wide newsletter and everyone on that particular distribution list has opted in to receive that newsletter. And as it goes out, no one's name is mentioned in the newsletter or, carbon copied or anything like that. It's sent through our constant contact program, which is, keeps all of the respondents or, folks that receive it confidential. So I don't know of any other, large quantity emails that we're sending out office wide.
Jenna, I think it's great. Sending out things that people have opted in on a list is a completely, I think that's a separate that's separate from showing the addresses in the CC field. Brad, you might want to address this because the invites and things that you show out show the whole arena. I think that there was a 50 some odd emails showing in the I would have to pull it up in the CC field with, I thought they were one of the recent emails that came. I'd have to look at it, but the point is, if people are in the CC field, and it's kind of like if you invite everybody to a wedding, do you send the invitation list to the wedding to everybody that you're inviting? And I don't know that we should take a whole bunch of time on this. I think that there's a principle involved because there is a lot of confusion, and it turns into a dog and pony show. Or all these, if the email is worded, "Thank you all for your interest in or for attending," and it goes out to a bunch of people, many of whom are not necessarily in attendance or participating, it creates misimpressions. And I think the firming up what the list of actual participants is in whether it's the CAC plus or whatever else will also clear up and give the level of legitimacy and transparency and confirmation that can separate from separate from the sort of the large batch use of addresses. And Anthony Aragon, says two Anthonys. Anthony, that was one of the requests, and one of the things I did not feel it was appropriate for me to receive individually, as you understood, which is what is the firm list of what the current CAC plus is, based on asking people, folks, hey, go ahead, can we opt in and have that list? And that's sort of a separate task.
Okay,
Yeah.
Anthony, would you like to
Yeah.
respond to that, and then we're gonna move on?
Yeah, I think the calendar invite does show everyone's email address because they are listed as required. And I think that's where perhaps people would see other people's email addresses, but the only people that would see those names are the people that are invited to this meeting. So I think that might be an instance where the large sum of emails are in public domain. That's something maybe we could look at to maybe hide those names from there. So I think that we can have a discussion as a staff just to make sure that if we're sending information to the community, that, that we BCC and not CC everyone, so that we don't get these large, I've had it happen to me as well, these large reply alls, and then it's multiple emails. Around the membership though, I think what we could do and what I might suggest is once we solidify the roles and responsibilities this evening, and then we identify, and I used the wrong word, my apologies, I said member, stakeholders, which is the word that's the term we're using now. We could put a stakeholder list with name and perhaps affiliation on our website, with permission from the individual. If people do not want to be listed on the website with their name and affiliation as a member of the CAC Plus, they can opt in or opt out. But I think that could be a way to at least show community who's stakeholders as part of the CAC Plus. But I think that's the only place that I can think of where everyone's email might be shared was with the calendar invite.
So Anthony, why don't we take this offline and then AE, I think you've got some of the answer you may want, and then maybe a further discussion with Anthony would be helpful. To answer some of your question, and also Anthony to get input.
Yeah.
Well, I think anybody can I don't want to individually necessarily follow through. I think everybody, Anthony, I'm going to forward you emails where the BCC is not being used that are not invites, and maybe there's something where you're not aware, but we'll talk about it. But I think that it has to be an office policy and discussed within the NWCA office, and there is a mechanism with most software and even this calendar thing to put that to shadow that. Okay, that's it. Cool. Appreciate the discussion.
Thank you, AE.
Jenna?
Yeah, I'll try to be really brief because I know we have a robust discussion coming up. Many of you are either aware of or signed up for our text message platform. You've probably seen these little note cards strategically placed around our office and around the community. We try to distribute these regularly, advertising our text message platform. If you're not signed up for it, I would highly recommend that you do get signed up for it. Periodically, we get comp tickets to events that are being held here at the new campus. We did just request some tickets as well for the merch powwow that's coming up, and we have 20 comp tickets coming for that. But we have, historically heard from community members that historically they haven't felt super comfortable or haven't, felt like they were part of the campus, and we really want to do everything that we can to break down any barriers that may exist. So for that reason, we are asking all of our event promoters to please consider donating some of the event tickets back to the community. Many of them have been very receptive to that. And we have determined the most equitable way that we can come up with in order to distribute those to community members, which is by sending out a text message through our text platform, just stating, that we have, say, 20 comp tickets to this upcoming event, and then will be given away on a first come first served basis. We're still trying to determine, I think we're going to just have people respond directly to the text message platform, and in turn, I can connect them with Anthony and we can get the tickets exchanged that way. But we just want to make sure that we're giving everyone a chance and that we're doing it completely anonymously so that we're, not one person is getting tickets to every single event on campus and so forth. So that is something new that we are going to start trying out here in the next couple of weeks. So if you are not signed up for our text message platform, please consider doing so. It is bilingual. We send out messages both in English and in Spanish. Forgive our grammar in Spanish because it won't allow us to do the accent marks and special characters, unfortunately. But yes, we have a pretty decent following on that, but we would love to increase those numbers as well. So
the other thing too is in the messaging, it will say you must be an 80216 resident. Yes. And she was asking, well, how are you going to know? I said, because I'm going to request their address and I'm going to personally deliver the tickets. So we will know exactly if they're an 80216, which I had so much fun when I did that with the auction tickets. So it helps me learn the neighborhoods as well. So yeah, yes, exactly.
Great. Okay, we're gonna move on to our next agenda item because we're aiming towards resolving the roles and responsibilities through a consensus discussion. And so if you could pull up those slides.
Just a second. So I
Sure.
closed it down.
So those of you who are new, about 4 meetings ago, maybe 3 or 4 meetings ago, we responded, the staff at the National Western responded to the request from several people about what is the role and responsibilities of the CAC plus. And that began a discussion and began to answer some questions about what that role could be over specifically as we move forward with a lot of new development and a lot of activities on the campus, and the desire by Brad and his staff to engage community in a very meaningful and specific ways. And so that everybody understood what those ways were and the expected roles and responsibilities, not only on Brad's part, but certainly on the community's part in terms of those roles and responsibilities. In each of the agendas that you had received, there was an attachment. This is I think the 3rd or 4th iteration of the roles and responsibilities document. I hope you've had time to look at it. We're not going to go through it again line by line. We've done that now 3 times, but I'm asking, as you have had time to review it, if there are any other major changes that you would like to see included in this document. I think we've got a pretty good document. I'm gonna skip this first paragraph for just a minute and come back to it. But as you'll see, you can see on the screen that we've made some changes. We're now referring to stakeholders, not community members. We're looking at the duties as we scroll down, Jenna. That just some language changes to be more clear and transparent. One of the major changes that you will see as we scroll down is the role of what we're calling the membership. And this is a really important part because we have so many of you here tonight, that the stakeholders now include as voting members the Western Stock Show Association, the City and County of Denver, CSU, the Denver Museum of Nature and Science and History Colorado. And Anthony has reached out. We have some of those representatives here tonight. But we are now including those as voting members, and previously they were not voting members, those institutions.
Yeah, if I may, can I ask what the background and reasoning for including these institutions as voting members is?
Who asked that question? Sorry, I couldn't tell.
It's Maria Massine. I'm Director of Community Engagement at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science.
Oh, right. Hey, Maria. Thanks.
Would anybody out of the community like to respond to that? Go ahead.
I mean, just being on the project for many, many years, Denver Museum of Nature and Science and History Colorado were kind of our founding partners here, MOU partners. And so it's just a recognition, I think, of that history. I mean, that's all I'll add, but look to the folks that authored this to explain more.
I recall the conversation, and my memory is not as good as it used to be. But I do remember that this was a robust conversation about the role and the positive relationship that the CAC has had and seeks to continue with these organizations. And it seemed odd to some members of the discussion group that they had to sit silent while votes were being taken, even though they were engaged in many of the conversations and many of the activities as partners and collaborators. So the group of stakeholders who were meeting on this at that time agreed that they should be voting stakeholders. There was no reason not to have them as voting stakeholders. AE was for you. Okay, I'm gonna go to Anthony and then I'll go to AE.
Why?
Oh.
No, I was.
Oh, I thought you were. Okay.
Like a cattle auction. You scratch your nose and you buy.
Don't move it.
AE?
Just a little bit of context. The formation of this initiative at the time that where there was no structure, no funding, no nothing except for some really gutsy people saying, let's keep the stock show here. And the mayor came in and said, okay, I'll risk my entire reputation on this, just exaggerating a little, but it's very bold. The MOU partners were made non-voting from my memory in the participation in the meetings because the formation of the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee was to create sort of a sense of equity with institutions. And the faith was that the institutions, the founding institutions, being in the room with the constituents from the neighborhoods that directly impacted, would work together to mutually become aware of each other, and that the voice would be that the resulting master plan, et cetera, would take into account as values and priorities the best interest, the greatest good for the impacted neighborhoods and the constituents and folks that are part of those. So I just want to say in context, it's much more than there's no reason not to it. I think that this is an accomplishment where it was recognized that among folks that the contributions of History Colorado, the Denver Museum of Nature and Science they're really critical resources. Many of the folks that were involved with the CAC in the neighborhoods would, for example, the Girls in Science and science camps, and the question has not been, it's not just to acknowledge the relationship, but why isn't there an even more active melding of these phenomenal institutions with the three founding partners? And I think how it's evolved and at what pace and to what capacity is something that can be looked at. But right, to me, having seen the process in its entirety, I feel like this is a way of saying that the full partnership of the Denver Museum of Nature and Science and History Colorado is being embraced in a more direct engagement, where the trust is that they're very creative and contributing to the enrichment of the constituents out here. So that's just a little more context.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now Anthony does.
Yes, and now I do have something. Thank you. So, everyone, I have had conversations with History Colorado. The two, Annie Levitz is the chief of staff there. And she shared with me that the two individuals who used to attend the CAC meetings, they're no longer employed at History Colorado, and they are working to identify a staff member that will be joining the CAC Plus moving forward. But I made sure in conversations with them, much like I did with Daniel and Tina Martinez and Maria probably as well, is I shared with them the original founding document as well as a draft of the draft roles and responsibilities, and did have a couple of conversations with them to help explain the change and the updated language. And so they do plan on joining us next month moving forward, a representative.
What's the original founding document? Real quick, Anthony, there's so many documents.
It's the original MOU.
The MOU? The
Yeah,
MOU? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, oh shoot, I had a thought and then I lost it, darn it. Okay, it must have been important. It was and it's gone.
Well, you can raise your hand.
Okay.
Or not.
Or not.
Or not. Okay, so as we go through the document, you can see that we've made just some language changes to clarify that we're using the same terminology throughout the entire document. We've included in there the values, and that we are going to work on through a consensus process, that ability to have peer-to-peer discussion and to robust discussions, and really continue the work that we've been doing over the course of the last few years. We've solidified how we're going to communicate with stakeholders using our website, and then process for feedback, continuing to seek out Any information that stakeholders wish to share, obviously can be, directed towards Anthony at this point, but because this is a lifelong not a lifelong document, but a general document, we've clarified that all information would go to the, National Western Center website or email. Now I want to come back to the beginning of the document. And one of the things that was brought up at our last meeting, so we have a general agreement, we can go and talk about the consensus process in a little bit, but at the top of the document, if you go back up, Jenna, at the top of that document, there was comments at the last meeting that perhaps that paragraph could be better written to reflect the MOU and also a description of the community. And so Anna and AE volunteered to draft some language, and I think you're gonna talk about that tonight, Anna and AE. And so with that, we're gonna talk about that paragraph. I would also note at the very end of this document, you saw that there was some references all the way down, Jenna, to the very bottom. I'm sorry to keep moving you around. But at the bottom, we agreed that sometimes not everyone understands, if you go down just a little bit more, Jenna, that a glossary of terms and a list of stakeholders could also be very important to the document itself. We also understood that glossary of terms and the stakeholder list change constantly, and it means that we can add to the glossary of terms as we need it, but we're going to be sure that glossary of terms, and I think you all were talking a little bit about that as well, Anna. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna turn it over to Anna and AE to talk about that first paragraph and what your recommendations are, suggestions are for language that would better reflect that introductory paragraph.
Sure. I wanna acknowledge that I know last time we had brought up stakeholder as an option. I went back and, yeah, AE, do you wanna go ahead?
Well, let's do the bullets. Let's do the bullets. Sorry, Ada, go ahead and finish your thought. And we arrived at a sequence of sort of a brevity presentation on this.
Exactly. I just wanted to say for the context of today that we did spend time going back, re-listening to that recording, making sure that we got everything right. And we did spend quite a few evenings on this as well. I'm gonna pass it over to AE to kind of go through a list of just suggestions on this specifically, but I think I feel more comfortable going through it that way, and then I can add AE if that's okay with you, if there's anything I feel I can add to.
Yeah, Anna and I both encountered sort of cataclysmic elements during our schedules this last month, I want to say on our behalf. And we did spend in this last week and a half substantial time. So I appreciate you mentioning that, Anna. And we arrived where we possibly, we intended to create a document in response and actually arrived at a couple things, short form, that I think we would have arrived at even if we'd worked on it for 4 weeks straight, 100 hours. One of which is, listening to the tapes, in all honesty, we weren't clear exactly what the revision was, what was being requested for that first paragraph. The simplicity of saying that everyone in the discussion last meeting, there was a kind of the Gloville, Leary, and Swansea, the full terrain within the neighborhoods is what this involves, as far as what are the neighborhoods. And so it just honestly wasn't clear what that charge was stakeholders. Both Anna and I arrived at, it's very difficult to justify stakeholders coming out of the full history of the word, even though certain dictionary definitions may neutralize it, but the stakeholder, it lands out of the land acquisition movement where land was staked and taken from indigenous people, where their stakes are when organizations vested interest have a stake in things. Has a great deal of a colonialist origin. And the concerns I was expressing last week that somewhat led to how can we bring that word forward? There is a great deal there's a great deal in the direction of we really may not want to use the word stakeholder. During the land rush, after the land acquisition bills, the unclaimed land was the land rush, and there's a lot of history and many people. I'm not going to go through that whole thing, but for those, that are, I just think there's all kinds of reasons not to, having to do with the origins in the context of what the National Western Center is and land use and all this sort of thing, to consider using members, consider using affiliates of the group, that kind of a thing. And I recognize we want to finish this, but there's a very problematic, problematic meaning behind that. The other thing that Anna and I discussed in the first paragraph was that if we're the concern about the seesawing back and forth between what the group is being called and CAC plus NWC CAC, the NWC CAC plus was not convened in 2013. The NWC CAC was convened in 2013, and I can send for someone to screen share an extraction of that. In fact, I'll just send it. Anthony and Catherine, I don't know if you can screen share. I just sent this off to you, but one of the things we talked about was that this is the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee was convened in 2013 by the MOU partners. In 2016, the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee guidelines and criteria were developed. In 2022, the function of a Citizens Advisory Committee to the National Western Center campus development was transitioned to the oversight of the National Western Center Authority, and the group was renamed. The following document, titled Roles and Responsibilities, is a derivative of the 2016, I would say derivative and update of the 2016 document. The following document, well, there's a redundancy there, I can edit it out. The following document, titled Roles and Responsibilities, is an update and derivative of the 2016 NWC CAC organizational guidelines, titled NWC CAC Guidelines and Criteria. So you can't amalgamate, or if that's the right word, in order to have standards of progression in documents that reflect the evolution of the process of what was the NWC CAC, and then it's come to be called the CAC plus. It's not an editing change to just the seesawing that we were talking about. It's a transition in how it's being identified and run and that kind of a thing. So in all honesty, I think we have to talk more about how does something like stakeholders land? Do we really absolutely have to completely define community in a very, very, how do we define community there's many thoughts about that. And I'm not, in all honesty, Anna and I, we spent a good bit of time discussing this and feel that it has to come out of something that may or may not be solved by simply writing this document. There's definitions and an understanding of what this CAC plus group is that has to be reflected by this document. It can't be simply created by the choice of some words. And then, so there it is. Catherine and Anthony, Aragon, I sent you the sort of rough wording if you want to talk about it. But if you imagine an introduction page going into this. At the presentation to the city council, and I'm just going to put this on just because I feel like it's important to talk about it. Brad, there was a moment where you expressed to the city council with the updates or the general report that prior to this, the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee predominantly talked about the architecture, the placements of the buildings and that kind of a thing. And I can't remember your exact words, but you said now the CAC is talking about the process and these kinds of things. And that is not accurate. Many of the things that are in the master plan, the framework agreement, the document that is becoming the next iteration of this are because of extremely deep and long and involved conversations and discussion around the kinds of things that have to do with the process and engagement and that kind of a thing. So Ann and I really did try to work through to come up with some modified language in some kind of straightforward edit. But frankly, the context of this document, which is the process of the constituents, whatever, the fully inclusive participants in the neighborhood life, economy, resident development, etc., visiting is something that has to arise out of a group understanding itself. It can't be edited in by word selection. It can't be created by word selection. So that's, Anna, can you please go ahead and help simplify and put anything you want on that? And I think we shared in a dilemma here, but we can put this much on the table. But the stakeholders as a word has a very weighted history. And go ahead, Anna.
Did you come up with a different word that might be? I think we thought members or, the allied partners. I think like I said, we listened to that recording and it sounds like everyone in the room or the people engaged in that discussion in the room at the time were saying, hey, we know this word might have something, let's look into it. Let's not use words that might have a negative connotation, especially for these communities. And it looks like looking through the document, that member might be a good one to use without that history. And of course, it's a collective decision still. So, and I think that we should continue to discuss if that's necessary.
Is there anyone who, I think, if I may speak from just, I feel like I'm a facilitator, but I do think we need to be sensitive to that word. If anyone thinks that it conjures up that meaning, I appreciate that you brought that forward. Does anybody disagree with changing that back to members? Is there anyone who feels strongly that should not be shifted back?
I have a comment. I agree to change that word. I think it's really important to consider those nuances. And alongside, I would like to invite us to think about the word citizen, that is in the Citizen Advisory Committee. For a lot of us, whether we are permanent residents or recent immigrants to the area, I think that if the purpose of this group is to look forward and be malleable and welcoming to the changes that are happening and are yet to happen, I think the word citizen is very exclusionary for the many contributions that people without that status can bring to this table to begin with, in terms of identity, in terms of the involvement, and I think it's worth to consider if a stakeholder is loaded, citizen, I think arises as well.
Do you have a recommendation that would take the place of that word?
Not in top of mind.
Would community advisory committee be?
That could be something.
Does anybody else have a different word that might?
I think that's just great to bring up. I think what we found with AE is like we kept going in, and to your point, you get the thing, you get the next word, and you go, citizens, so I think it just merits a little more discussion to be the intentional thing that we're saying that this is. But I don't have a particular, I don't know if community advisory committee would be differentiated, for example, to Dottie has a CAG. I don't know if we want to try to find something that's slightly more unique across the neighborhoods or specific to the National Western Center campus, conversation, but I think community works, I think whatever, but Daniel, was it? Gracias, and I think that that's super, I acknowledge that so much, I forget that detail.
Oh, I'm sorry, AE? Okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate the spotlighting the word citizen. I will say, now I'm going back to sort of some guerrilla language use. There's another definition of citizen, which frankly was in my mind when this was initiated, and this is an Oxford, kind of an Oxford dictionary, which is a member of a politically or administratively defined community, having both rights and duties associated with that membership. That's the Oxford Dictionary of Archaeology, and I visited that word at the time, and I thought this is guerrilla use of a word. So, this is like citizen. To be a citizen, you're endowed with the respect for the fact that the decisions being made around you are and in your environment affect you, regardless of whether you're a citizen of that particular nation or the dominant political party or any one part of the demographic. So this is an area where maybe a glossary can help, but I think it's an absolutely legitimate awareness regarding the word citizen. I myself relate to citizen, when you say citizen of the world, citizen of the ecology, citizen of the planet. I don't relate to citizen as having exclusively a membership of a national identity. So, important discussion, and there's another way to look at it. I do want to say one quick thing here, though, about when we discussed having a glossary, and I want to bring forward something that I expressed at the last meeting, which is I do not feel we should burden this document with the full task of the National Western Center Authority website or media generalization providing. I think this is a general. I think the congruency of language across the project merits there being a more central, center to the hub of the media, the convergence of all the media. The glossary can be a general project of the National Western Center Authority. It doesn't have to all fall on this document. So there's some considerations just as part of the discussion.
Thank you, AE. Sandra?
So I just wanted to comment, I understand the meaning of the words and everything. What I just don't want us to be is going back and back and back instead of going forward. Because we all decided that we were gonna call ourselves scapegoats. And then last month, we decided, no, we're gonna go back to be members. So I just don't want us to keep going back instead of going forward, because I feel like every meeting that we have, it's like we already accomplished something as a group, and then we go back again, because I don't know what happened. And I know this is a very sensitive document that we have to be very careful what goes in this document, but I still be taking a lot of time on this document because we keep going backwards instead of going forward. And so I just want to make sure that if we decide on a word, that everyone is here, that we all say that that's gonna be it, that next month we don't have to change it because something else happened, or I don't know what's going on, but I keep feeling like we spending so much time on this document, and I feel like we're losing time on doing other things. I know, like I said again, this is a very sensitive document, but we already put a lot of time, and I feel like everyone has to be respect in these meetings, like everyone's opinion has to be respected. So if we already agree on something and then we go back to changing that because I don't know why, and then we keep doing the same thing each month and each month and each month, I feel like we're not going forward. We keep being stuck on the same thing. I just don't want us to be stuck on the same issue all over and all over again instead of going forward, because I think there's a lot of potential on doing things.
Thank you, Sandra.
Can I add something
Yes.
quickly? I hear what you're saying. But I also know that institutions, large institutions, like, I mean, the National Western Center Authority may not be a large institution, but it works with a lot of large institutions, can be blind to the meaning of words because it has not been the water that they swim in. Yet it should be the water they swim in. And so if our organization, partner organizations, if we can communicate more clearly and more intentionally that remove systemic hurdles based in systemic racism from our documents and our language and how we do things, we need to take the time we need to do that and do it right. And I think it can be hard, and I think it can be messy, and it takes a lot more time, and it may feel inconvenient. I strongly feel like we need to take whatever time we need to take to do this really right. And these conversations matter. I mean, they matter to me. I learned from this group. I can't believe that I have never thought of that. I have said CAC and Citizens Advisory Committee 10,000 times, and that has never struck me. That's my background, right? I didn't even think of that. And so I think we absolutely need to be super thoughtful about this, and I really appreciate that comment. And same stakeholder. It's exactly what it means. And we use that word innocently, but it has very specific history. And if we as institutions, and as me, as a privileged white man, doesn't learn from these things, we don't make progress. So I don't know, sorry to take time.
And I'm
but
not
that-
against the word.
Yeah,
I totally agree, the members should be the right word. What I'm against is that the same people that voted for certain words, they don't agree with it next month. I mean, we can move forward
Yeah.
on different issues on the document, but not going for backward with something that we all already agreed on. I mean, if it takes us 2 more years to do this document, that's fine. It's just, that's.
we have lots to do.
So I will remind you that, one of the things that you talked about last month, when you said, what did you hope for in 2024, is that we would complete our operational guidelines, roles and responsibilities, and that we would have more time for discussion on programs, projects, and issues. And Steve has presented really some hard work that we're about ready to jump into. So in sort of that spirit, I'd like to make 3 suggestions to you. One, that we change stakeholders back to members to better reflect our intent. That we change citizens to community. So it's community advisory committee, meaning any community. It could be in all of its definition. It could be business community, residential community, it could be youth community, it could be a women's community, community in its broadest sense. And to AE's suggestion or thoughts about adding words into the glossary be something that the NWCA takes on as its own. And we begin to add in those words as we need, and somebody says, well, we need to put that in the glossary, we could do that. And that in the first paragraph, that AE, I do have your email, and your last paragraph says, the following document titled Roles and Responsibilities is an update and derivative of the 2016 NWC CAC organizational guidelines titled NWC CAC guidelines and criteria. That's maybe all we need to say. This is an update, and that's what it is. And there may be, we may come back and say we need an update 10 months from now, but we can continue to update. And if we can try to reach consensus on all of these one at a time. And then we'll be done. So because we're about ready to launch into the equestrian center and the Cup North, which is consistent with what your wish was to move on to more discussion about programs and activities. Does anybody disagree with that process? And we'll do it one by one. AE, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm getting confused by the reaction button. It's on my crazy monitor here. Listen, I just want to say I'm totally fine myself with any kind of major name change going forward. I think that's fine, and I feel also that a glossary, just to throw this in the mix, a glossary does not have to be a closed-minded list of definitions. It can record combined meanings for the sake of discussion. And I'm saying this for citizen because I very much think it's a very important discussion to have citizen be seen in a way that is not necessarily nation-based. I think there's a lot of really good possibilities in the world of unifying and liberation and that kind of a thing, and things that can get rid of the hierarchies. However, I feel about citizen the same way that I feel about stakeholder. It's moving forward to simplify the task. If there's a word that encompasses the principle of what we're trying to do. And Sandra, I appreciate your sentiments. I don't at all feel this is going backwards. I feel like in somewhat harmoniously with what Brad is saying. I think the discussion is important, not just for what people learn, but because it sets a precedent for people feeling they can enter into the process, understanding that they are understood and they are seen. And so it's a very much a forward looking, it's very important. The document, and it is a derivative in addition to being an update, it's very important. I'm seeing copies and pastes of the framework agreement, the master plan showing up without attribution. The loss in a lot of the things that show up as communication instruments around the project, what's lost in that is a sense of the depth of process and the magnitude of the documentation that has gone into this, even in an imperfect situation where the engagement of the members of the neighborhoods and however we define it could have been much better and can become much better. I think it's really important to have the stature of the developing of the common mind on this clear in the sequencing and evolution of the documents. So I think that's important. And within that, people can help orient each other to what has gone before and how it's informed what's going forward. So on that basis, I feel like the whole story can be more precisely focused so that people can feel their entry points already aware of how the project and the values can be discussed and how much they already are welcoming. So just as part of the discussion. So I don't feel like we absolutely have to have a cut and dry glossary. It can frame some further discussion.
All right, thank you, AE. I've asked Anthony to pull up the consensus piece of, I think, hang on just a minute.
Isn't it so foreign to use a computer that isn't yours?
I know it's
the same
and it's
computer.
Yes.
No one's not. It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
No,
Yes, document, my document.
All right, okay. Okay, so this is my definition of consensus, that as a facilitator, I'm just gonna say we're gonna use this one. There are other definitions of consensus, there's no question. But for this time, we're going to use consensus as a decision-making. We don't need to achieve unanimity, but we look to a solution where everyone is okay. Not all types of agreements stop. Can you go back to that? And don't stop the decision-making. So you can agree with the proposal, you can reserve, you can stand aside, and you can block. With an agreement, you support it, it's a thumbs up. Reservations, you're willing for the proposal to go ahead, but want to make the group aware that you aren't happy with it. So it's a thumb like this. It's to the side. And the third one, the stand aside, you want to object but not block the proposal, also just neutral. It's a neutral vote. And the block is a thumbs down. Okay? So we're gonna move forward with this because we have 15 minutes left. We've heard from several people in this meeting and at the last meeting and also other ways that we need to move on. And that doesn't mean that we're moving on forever. It just means that at this moment, we're gonna adopt these things and we may change them as need be, as the occasion arises. So the first definition or the first word change that we want to say is that we're gonna change stakeholders to members. Is there anybody who thinks they would like to block this recommendation? Which I'll start from the bottom. I can't see that. Anybody on the screen, can you see that?
You'd have to stop sharing.
No.
You'd have to stop sharing.
Or if, Steve. Yeah, thanks. Okay, no, we don't see anybody who wishes to block that. We're assuming that you were either standing aside, reserving, or agreement with the proposal.
Okay, you're good.
Okay, the second word change is that we're changing Citizens Advisory Committee to better say Community Advisory Committee. Is there anyone who disagrees with that proposal and wants to stop the proposal?
But still CAC.
So it's still CAC, but it's going to be the Community Advisory Committee. Okay, thank you. The glossary, we're going to add into that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a part of this document. We'll add on words as we need to have common definitions. Does anybody disagree and wish to block that recommendation? Okay, now we have with those changes and the addition of acknowledging that this document is an update and derivative of the 2016 operational guidelines. Is there anyone who wishes to stand aside or have any reservations, or indeed, does anybody want to block this document as it moves forward, realizing that it is on paper, and we can change it as a community advisory committee as we feel it needs to be changed. But moving forward, this will guide our actions. Anybody who want to block that? Are there anybody who has reservations or wishes to stand aside and would like to express that to the committee? Okay. Round of applause.
Yeah.
You did it, okay. Thank you. We'll send out the final pieces again. Remember, it is a live document. It will have changes. And as people come back and say, let's reconsider this, we can always have that discussion. But now we can move forward and prepare ourselves for the work that it's coming up with around the Equestrian Center Hotel and Cup North. Okay, AE, you have a comment?
Yeah.
Oh, there.
Yeah. So was there somebody else there that you just recognized?
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to say that that my relationship to this consensus is not listed on the reaching consensus. It's not necessary to address this now. I did want to ask. I've sort of been giving the office a benefit of the doubt. The NWC CAC page where the domain has been changed has been inactivated unless it's gone up in the last hour. I've been watching that, wondering if it was because folks were trying to change it from the old server. Let me see if it's up again. If it's up again, no, it's not. Brad, somebody that knows, Jenna, Anthony, can you address what has happened? I understand that the domain has been purchased by the authority, I assume, or transferred from CRL, but the page has disappeared. That might be a database transfer. What is happening and how is that being preserved so that it can be fully accessed?
I can confirm that it has been transferred from CRL over to the authority. Last time I looked at it, it was up and running, so I will need to look into why it's gone down, but there shouldn't be any reason that it's been.
It is, yeah, I got the same thing, AE, it's.
So
it's
that's
not-
stuff, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
If I could, AE, just so you're aware, every single document that was on the website, I downloaded and I have a file of every single document that was on that website so that, you know, the importance of preservation. I have a zip drive on my computer that has every single document that was contained in that website. And so just for people to rest assured that while it may be down, the information is in two places. And I have.
I appreciate you mentioning that, Anthony. I was aware of that and I appreciate that. And I'm trying to find a time when I could come by with a flash drive and pick up the whole thing. I have about 2/3 of it. I think that the structure design of the website is another thing that is partly a preservation for an associative understanding of the process. So I do appreciate that the database is preserved in a number of ways. But anyway, let's just see what we can do to have a smooth process of recognizing the site as an archive that can be consciously and transparently evolved into its next utilization. That's all I'm asking, is to preserve that.
Thank you, AE. Well, thank you to everyone who participated tonight, and welcome to all of our new members and everyone who took the time to be with us tonight. And we're looking forward to the March meeting, probably a bit more news in our March meeting from Steve. We're looking forward to that. And so we'll have a very active summer and your voices will be really, really important as we move forward. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Gracias por los tamales. Thank you.
Did you notice? Steve, but it's fun. What you doing in my closet, huh? I saw you, I literally, while you were talking, I was like, do I have buttons?
Okay,
Oh, I don't
guys,
have buttons.
Steve, I can't feel like the meeting's